God, how do I start with this one? This is a very annoying and development because ever since the war started, Poland has been one of, if not the first country that jumped to the aid of Ukraine. It gave supposedly, I've not actually, I have not been able to verify this claim, but Poland and many other Polish sources claim that Poland was the country that gave uh, the military equipment to Ukraine first, which allowed to Ukraine to defend itself from the initial wave of attacks from Russia. Poland has received a whole big wave of refugees, even though there were bumps along the way with farmer protesters. The whole relationship between Poland and Ukraine has been better than ever. It has been a very splendid relationship, very sort of the relations between these two countries have been much better than before. Historical wounds seemed to have been healing, and now suddenly, all of a sudden, it seems that things have been going far too well, and it's time for some tension. It's time for some tension between Ukraine and Poland because when things are going too well, something bad must happen. There was this event called Campus Poland of the Future in a city called Olsztyn, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, attended that event. Dmytro Kuleba attended to that event, and during the event, one of the spectators, one of the Polish guests, asked him about a question about history. And the question was, I'm paraphrasing as follows, more or less. When will Ukraine allow for the exhumation of the victims of the Volyn massacre? The Volyn massacre, of course, refers to the killings of the Polish citizens in now Ukrainian territories by the organization called the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists and their military branch UPA. And it is considered by some a genocide committed by the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists on the Polish population. It is estimated that maybe even more than 100,000 Polish people were murdered in this massacre. I think collectively in the Volyn massacre and the Galician massacre, because those two sort of are usually treated under the one umbrella. But that's neither here nor there. That happened. It was a big crime. It became a big sticking point in Polish-Ukrainian relations. There was, of course, a historical reason why the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists even was able to arise in the first place. That all comes back to the Second Polish Republic and how 10 million Ukrainian people were within the borders of the Second Polish Republic and how those people were treated by the Polish state. It all comes back to the unsuccessful attempt at creating a Ukrainian state after World War I in 1917, the Ukrainian People's Republic. It's all a long story, but it all culminated in this war crime that has been committed on Polish people in during World War II. And of course, there was then retaliatory action by the Polish Home Army, which resulted in between 2 and 3,000 Ukrainian people killed. Uh, so again, we go back to the event. Dmytro Kuleba attended the Polish event, he was asked, when will Poland be able to conduct an sort of exhumation of the victims of the Volyn massacre so they can get a proper burial, and that an investigation that would sort of we would be able to investigate what exactly sort of how many victims there were, etc., etc. Right? That's like a very common thing that happens. And in response, Dmytro Kuleba asked the person, okay, but did you know that after the war, Poland, under its communist government, conducted a thing called Operation Vistula, under which many Ukrainian people were forcibly deported. You feel generous? Thank you. Forcibly deported from their homes somewhere else, and that was also a crime. So he sort of did this, as they call it in online spaces, whataboutism. He said, what about this crime that Poland did later? Because of course it was a crime of ethnic cleansing, what Poland did after World War II. The Operation Vistula was an operation of displacing Ukrainian communities, sort of moving them around so that they would not be in gathered communities anymore. The pretense was combating UPA and the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists. That was the rationale behind Operation Vistula, which was de facto an ethnic cleansing, which is a crime, even though it does not it doesn't exist officially as a crime, but we all know that ethnic cleansing is, at least morally speaking, a crime. And so Kuleba brought this up, said that it is a bad idea to dig in history, to sort of dig up history, because if we dig up history, then Polish people can tell Polish people can say that Ukrainian people did horrible things to them, and Ukrainian people can say that Polish people did horrible things to them historically, right? There was one thing that he said that was very controversial, because, of course, Operation Vistula, we might as well look it up even. Operation Vistula. Operation Vistula was the code name for 1947 forced resettlement of close to 150,000 Ukrainians, including Rusyns, Boykos, and Lemkos, from the southeastern provinces of post-war Poland. Oh, Barry! Thank you for the $5, Greater Rain. Alec, here's 5 in your honor, just because. Wow, thank you. So from the southeastern provinces of post-war Poland to the recovered territories in the west of the country, the action was carried out by the Soviet-installed Polish Communist authorities to remove material support to the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, UPA. The Ukrainian Insurgent Army continued its guerrilla activities until 1947 in Subcarpathian and Lublin voivodeships. With no hope for any peaceful resolution, Operation Vistula brought an end to the hostilities. So that's it. That is basically what Kuleba brought up during the meeting, and said that if we keep digging up history, then both sides can sort of bring up the horrible things that the other did. And he ended the answer by saying, let us leave history to the. Okay, let me get back to the Operation Vistula thing first, because um, when he started answering the question to the person, uh, Kuleba said that people were displaced, that people were uh, resettled from Ukrainian territories. That is a thing that that sparked controversy because it was Polish territory after the war, right? Ukrainian people living in Polish territory after the war, and it sparked controversy. And Kuleba clarified that he didn't mean literally Ukrainian territory, but he meant territory in which Ukrainian people have historically lived in bigger communities alongside other peoples. That is basically what he meant when he said Ukrainian territory. Territory on which Ukrainian people lived in bigger communities, right? So that's the context. And he ended the response by saying, "Let us leave history to the historians, and we as politicians should focus on building the future together rather than focusing on the past, which should be left to the historians. And let's not dig into history, because that is something that currently Russia wants. It desires this discord, this argument on historical grounds. And this, okay, he also added that he has nothing against the exhumation, that he has discussed the topic of exhumation with the Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sikorski, Radosław Sikorski, and that the only thing that he asks for is for Poland to also commemorate Ukrainian victims of things like Operation Vistula. Right? And then he concluded the whole, let's leave history to the historians, let us build a future together. And this statement, of course, has sparked controversy. Many people were really angry over Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs statement. Among them were the Minister of Defense, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz. That's his name. He was angry and he said that without resolving this issue, Ukraine will not, that there is no way that Ukraine will be joining the European Union without resolving this issue. Very recently, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk also has made a statement. He said that without Polish okay, Ukraine will not be able to join the European Union, and that joining the European Union is not just about joining a shared market, about joining a shared sort of zone of open borders, sort of like, that people can go without passports, but it's also about joining a certain sphere of culture and understanding about history, and that this sort of disagreement about history is a thing that Poland cannot agree uh, on allowing Ukraine to join the European Union before this thing gets resolved. A far more sort of calm and, I would say, composed answer came from the Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Radosław Sikorski. He said that the discussion about coming to terms with history, the discussions about sort of coming to terms with history, coming to terms with bad things about history, about sort of agreeing upon it, that it's a two-way street, that Poland must accept certain things as well as Ukraine must accept certain things. And I believe that Yaroslav Sikorski's answer to the whole thing was the most measured and the most reasonable. And you probably, whoever's still watching this, you're probably wondering what my opinion on the whole debacle is. I personally did not think that the answer from the Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs was as bad as many people said. I personally think that even though, objectively speaking, the Volyn massacre was a much it was a much more severe crime than Operation Vistola. I think it is still fair for Ukraine to expect this sort of mutual this how should I put it? I think it's fair for Ukraine to expect a mutual approach when it comes to dealing with history. I think that Poland should absolutely commemorate the Ukrainian victims of things like Operation Vistula, of Ukrainian people that died in the retaliatory attacks after the Volyn massacre. And in turn, I think Ukraine should allow the Polish side to do the exhumations. But I don't think there are a few things to say here. I think that those talks should be mutual, as I've just outlined, right? Both sides should be respectful to one another. Both sides should be respectful to the victims, Ukrainian and Polish alike. But I also am not this. I think these sort of things should be sorted through talking, and once again talking about them. And I don't think that I think nothing gets accomplished by Poland proclaiming that Ukraine will not be able to join the European Union until it basically does what Poland wants. I think this is a very unsophisticated, brute force way for Poland to get what it wants, and I think it will simply sour the relationship between Poland and Ukraine. That is my opinion on the situation. I think nothing good comes from Poland trying to brute force its way into the exhumation thing. I think it's in Poland's best interest to build a good relationship with its neighbor Ukraine, and as the minister put it, to build a future together. And I think that discussing historical crimes and painful and complicated history should be built on mutual respect and mutual discussion rather than on ultimatums such as, unless you listen to us, we will not allow you entry to the European Union. And that is basically all that I have to say on this topic.